Good morning, everyone. My name is Angel, and I'm the host of Have Faith, Let It Begin. On this Sunday, July 21st, 2019, we close out the chapter of Angela performing her personal testimony entitled A Work in Progress. We want to thank her for her participation on the show, her dedication, and for the opportunity to come on the show and pretty much lay out something very personal to share with each and every one of you. I'm very happy to announce that over the course of 1 month, this episode has launched over 1,200. That is correct, over 1,200 views, and is still climbing as we speak. With that in mind, let's conclude our series of Angela being on our show with our last airing of A Work in Progress. Here now is that episode. Are you looking for something different? Are you driving to work every morning and saying to yourself, what could I do to pass the time? Well, here's a show for you. Weekdays, Monday through Friday. Have Faith, Let It Begin. It is a show designed for you, the daily commuter. Motivational topics, inspirational stories, personal testimony set out to change the world. Join us every morning live at 7:30 a.m. because this is a show all about faith. My name is Angel, and welcome to Have Faith, Let It Begin. On June 16th, 2018, I launched this show, Have Faith, Let It Begin. Join me each and every weekday at 7:30 a.m. live because this is a show all about faith. Motivational topics, inspirational stories, personal testimony designed for you, the daily commuter. My name is Angel, and welcome to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
30 seconds to go.
Hi, I am Mia. You're listening to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Hi, my name is Isabella, and you're listening to Have Faith, Let It Begin. Hello, my name is Amari, and today we are back on another episode of Have Faith and Let's Begin.
10 seconds to go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, my name is Angela, and you're listening to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Hello everyone, this is Angel from Have Faith, Let It Begin. Today is a very special episode. Today, we will have our very first guest. Her name is Angela. I am asking each and every one of you at this time to put everything aside, open your minds, open your hearts, and allow her to express her story and to share her personal testimony with you today. For Have Faith, Let It Begin, my name is Angel, and here is our guest, Angela. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Have Faith, Let It Begin. I can't believe I'm about to say this. I have finally my first guest next to me. She is to my right, and her name is Angela. Angela, I would like to first and foremost welcome you to our show. It's been a long journey, but we're here. So welcome to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, we were supposed to have you on the show, oh my gosh, a while ago. But I went through some things and we couldn't get well, it's my fault. I gotta put it on me. It's my fault. But I'm so happy to have you here. Let me just, before you get started into your personal testimony, let's just backtrack a little bit. We met because my niece, who everybody hears, Bella, she's the one that does my name is Isabella. She went to 12th Rock, which is where you are a coach. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and I went to go see her play one of her last games. Mm-hmm. And at the end, what did they have you do now, just to recap the people?
They just had me go through and, talk a little bit about my testimony and how I came to my faith and about my love for the game and, what 12th Rock means to me. Gotcha.
And I think I didn't, if I haven't mentioned, it was basketball. Now, the key thing was, to backtrack just a second, what really captured my eye, and we'll talk about 12th Rock later, in another part of the episodes, because this is going to be a series, was the fact that before the game started, you guys prayed before the game even started. And that's, at first, got me, I was like, wow, I've never seen that. Does that happen in all the games?
Yes, 12th Rock is a sports ministry, so, it's really about Jesus and faith first. So, they open up that way, and they always share during their halftime as well. So,
yeah,
they
that's
really
awesome.
bring
And I can't wait to talk about that. But I don't want our viewers to have to wait. I know that they've been waiting for you to be here. And to end on that part, she gave a personal testimony right at the end, and that's when I knew she had to be on the show. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Angela and welcome her on the show. And I encourage each and every one of you to write to us. This is a pre-recorded show because it's her first time, and I wanted to make sure that she was ready and we were able to provide her with a good environment. But remind you to everyone, write to us, angel@halffaithletitbegin.com. You can use our halffaithlig at gmail.com, and you can write to Angela. I will make sure she gets every email, and if she wants to write back, she can do that, of course. So please listen up. This is an amazing story. And with that being said, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Angela.
Again, I just want to thank you, Angel, for this opportunity to share on your podcast, and we can wait and see how it goes before you thank me for sharing.
Okay.
It was a few months ago when I first shared part of my testimony through a sports ministry called 12th Rock. I had never shared my testimony before, but Greg and Mark, the founders and leaders of 12th Rock, asked if I would share not only a brief testimony, but also share about my love for basketball and what 12th Rock means to me. Simply put, 12th Rock was an answered prayer. I had asked God to help me find a way to combine two of my greatest passions, my faith and sports. Then one Sunday morning, 12th Rock was mentioned at church. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm being asked to speak at the end of the season ceremony. I teach to numerous high school students every single day, but the idea of sharing my testimony to a small group of 9 to 12-year-olds and their families had me a little stressed. It's one of those things you can't really say no to, though, so you say yes, and then you pray you get sick the day you're supposed to speak. Actually, speaking of prayers, as I was thinking about what I was going to say and how I was going to say it, I remembered a prayer jar I started a few years ago. I would write down a prayer and a Bible verse to go along with it, and then place it in the jar. I remembered a specific prayer I had put in the jar. I had written down the verse from 1 Peter 3:15. But set Christ apart as Lord in your hearts, and always be ready to give answer to anyone who asks about the hope you possess. My prayer was, Lord, I pray that you not only prepare me to share my testimony, but also to share the good news of the gospel, for you to use me to help spread your word. Help to give me the strength, courage, and wisdom to speak up and speak out in a kind, loving, and effective manner. So here I was, 2 years after putting that prayer in the jar, wondering why I ever decided to put that prayer in the jar. I remember getting through it and being so thankful it was over, and then heading over to get my water. Then I see this man walking towards me. I'm thinking, I wonder what this guy wants. That's when Angel proceeds to introduce himself and tell me about his faith-based podcast, and wondered if I would be interested in sharing more of my testimony on his show sometime. I don't want to lie on a faith-based podcast, so the truth is, I thought, no way do I want to do that. I barely made it through this. But I also knew God was still answering that prayer and opening another door for me to walk through and share about the hope I possess and the good news of the gospel. I remember wanting to write down my testimony for years, but never getting around to it. I always felt like I wasn't where I wanted to be yet, in my life and in my relationship with God, and that my story wouldn't do justice to how amazing our God is until I was at a certain spot in my life and in a certain spot in that relationship. But maybe the worst place to be is that place you think you want to be. Because if we're already at that place we think we want to be, then what more will we strive for? How can we keep growing and improving in our lives and in our relationship with God if we think we are already at our best? Even though I have learned a lot, I have a lot to learn. There is always room to grow, and each day I have a choice in my attitude and effort I put into this life. I hope to choose wisely. Looking at my story, or anyone's for that matter, I see a past that is written, a present being written, and a future yet to be. I also see God in it all, for He is the one in control. Until this life is over and I enter into my eternal home, I hope to continue to grow my relationship with Him as my story unfolds. So this is part of my story, a work in progress, as am I. I was born in a small town in northern New York to two parents who decided to honor their commitment, defy all odds, and endure a marriage that has lasted 40 plus years. Try not to judge. At least they got one good thing out of it. Two, if you count my brother. If you ask them how it lasted, the answer is simple. God. My mother grew up going to church, and I remember her speaking of the impact of that on her as a child, whereas my father's background was a little different, having not grown up attending church on a regular basis. Ultimately, over time, both of them grew in their relationship with God, which provided me with the blessing of growing up in a Christian home. We were the family who went to church every Sunday. My dad was an elder, and my mom worked on various committees in the church. I was the kid who was active in the church youth group, and we even lived right next door to my pastor. Talk about having to be on your best behavior. It was this pastor, Lester Ballman, and his wife, Carol Ballman, who helped impact my parents' walk with the Lord, and ultimately impact mine. At the time, I never realized how blessed I was, and how fortunate I would one day come to realize I am, for having been provided with a foundation built on Christian principles and values. I accepted Christ into my heart at a young age at a Christian summer camp. I was a good kid for the most part. I think 98% of people would agree with that statement. I was respectful and never really got in much trouble at school. I did well in most of my classes and found relative success in athletics. Life was pretty good for me, and I thought of God as part of that pretty good life, on Sundays and at church youth group. I definitely wasn't thinking about Him as much as He was thinking about me. But I believed in Him, and I believed I was a Christian. Looking back, I realized I may have known about God, but I didn't really know God. I didn't have a real relationship with Him. When I went off to college, I no longer attended church on a regular basis, and all my focus was on what I wanted to do. Life was all about me. I was fortunate enough to play college basketball, which became one of my top priorities, along with my classes and hanging out with my friends. In the moment, I thought I was having the time of my life and making the best memories someone could make. But what I was also making was poor choices. As great as college can be, I often joke it's the worst place you can send a child. I found myself living in a way that defied everything I was taught in my youth. And as far as a relationship with God, I only talked to Him when I needed something. We all know that is not the way a relationship is meant to be. It wouldn't be until years later that I would find my way back to my roots and begin a real relationship with God. In fact, after college, my priorities still weren't much different. As years went by, I knew the life I was living was not the one God wanted for me. And then one day I got a call from my brother. He wanted to know if I wanted to get baptized with him. Having grown up in a Christian home and having that foundation, I knew this was the next step I needed to take. So that year, on Good Friday, my brother and I were baptized. And even though I started thinking differently, everything didn't change for me, because I still didn't change everything in my life for God. The pastor who baptized us talked about the importance of getting into the Word and getting connected in a church. I hadn't felt comfortable in a church since I was a kid, even though I had visited some here and there throughout my adult life. I thought of church as one of those places where everyone is supposed to feel accepted. But as an adult, I always felt like an outcast at church, but accepted by the world. The world is where I fit in pretty well. I didn't seem to have much in common with people at church, and I never seemed to find people who I could relate to outside of my faith. And even though that is the most important factor, I still wanted to feel connected to these people in another way. So I tried to make gradual changes in my life on my own. And as I made these gradual changes in my life, there was a period of time where I knew what I wanted, but I was still struggling to get there. It was as though I was still all these different people, depending on where I was or who I was with. I remember writing this poem during this time, and it wasn't long after I wrote the poem that I really started to put the work into my relationship. I'll share the poem with you now, and maybe you can get a sense of where I was in my walk at that time. Maybe other people have been at a similar place in theirs. These are my thoughts, these are my questions, these are my feelings, these are my confessions. Who I was, who I am, what I've done, who I've become, where I'm going, when I'll get there, if it's me, what version it'll be. Look back, see my past, look forward, it's coming fast. Where I've been, where I want to be, is there still time? Is there time for me? The changes I've made so far, where I've set the bar, how to get there before it's too late, before I face him at the gate. Never close to the worst person, but never my best version. A first impression, worthy of confession, my own little learned lesson. Some have come and gone, left with only a verse of my song, a vivid picture ingrained in time, creating images in their mind, and memories that have become how I'm defined. Others remain today, but have they really seen me along the way? Do they sing the same verse, where my guilt holds on like a curse, because it's there, I was at my worst? Do they really know who I am? Have I let them in? And if not, then when? Why do I sit in silence, without courage to speak out? Why do I cover up my faith, when it's become everything I'm about? A past that can haunt me, a future struggling to begin. Can they merge? How will they blend? What if they knew what I truly believed? How would it be received? Would things be the same? Should they be? These are my thoughts. These are my questions. These are my feelings. These are my confessions. As I read that again, part of me feels ashamed that I couldn't fully step out. What was preventing me from fully committing? Why couldn't I let go of my past? Why couldn't I start the future I wanted? My faith was starting to become the most important part of who I am. I wanted that to define me, but I was holding back for some reason. Then I started attending a church and reading the Bible on a regular basis. I started to seek and get to know God. I started to have a real relationship with Him. I didn't just believe in God, I started following God. I think this is the ultimate moment, when we go from simply believing in God to truly following Him and serving Him. There is one specific moment at a spot on a bike trail where I would read my Bible, that I remember praying to God and no longer wanting anything to separate me from putting Him first in my life. I remember calling my mom and being like, "Mom, do you remember the joy you could see and feel in Carol Bauman? I have that joy. I feel that joy." Until you feel it, there's no way to explain it in a way that does it justice. I felt a joy and excitement for my life in a way I had never experienced before. I knew in that moment that my identity was found in Jesus Christ, and I felt a newfound purpose for my life. There was a desire to be obedient and faithful. I started viewing life through the lens of Scripture and found my best days to be the days I was third, behind God and others. I knew I still wouldn't be perfect, and I would still sin, but I knew I wanted to be less like my old self and more like Jesus. I also knew He loved me and had forgiven me, and I needed to love and forgive myself as well. Sometimes this can be the hardest part, forgiving yourself for your past, and even forgiving yourself for times you still fail and make mistakes. But maybe there's a beauty in learning to appreciate the mistakes, because maybe without the mistakes, we would never really be able to truly appreciate the beauty and the better choices. And it was now that I had the desire to make better choices more than ever before. It wasn't very long after that, however, in which I went through a difficult time in my life. And as we know, when we are faced with these challenges, we oftentimes want to ask, why me? For some reason, that question didn't enter my mind. Instead, my first thought was, why now? I had just surrendered and given everything to God. Life was supposed to be great now, but suddenly it wasn't. What was God trying to show me? Why was this happening now? The thing is, we're always going to have questions, and we're not always going to have the answers. But what I came to realize in this situation, like so many others, this was His perfect timing. Not only am I not sure how I would have handled it earlier in my life, but because of the timing, it provided an opportunity to grow and mature in my new relationship with God. There was still some more change that needed to happen in my heart, and pride that needed to be chipped away so some humility could take its place. I spent morning after morning reading His Word, and morning after morning it was like He was speaking directly to me. Every verse I read seemed to directly correlate to what I needed to hear that day, and the closeness I felt to Him carried me through the darkness until He brought miraculous light back into my life. The fact is, we will always face challenges, and it is in these times that God can do His greatest work and reveal His power, love, and mercy. No challenge will be too difficult when God is by your side. Jesus reminds us in Matthew 19:26, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible." I have also experienced God's blessings. One of my favorite verses is Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Not only because it reminds me of the importance of our prayer life and helps me turn my worries into prayers, but because it reminds me to be thankful and to exemplify gratitude for all God has done in my life, the many blessings He has given. Some that have required me to look back and see from earlier in my life, and others that have come since turning my life over to Christ. Last summer, I had the opportunity to attempt to summit Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Looking back on that experience alone, I can count numerous blessings. But what I want to specifically mention is the moment leading up to summit night and summit night itself. After our group reached base camp, we met some people who were on their way back down from the summit, and their words were less than encouraging. I remember hearing brutal and threw up the entire time. As I looked up at the top of the mountain, I lost faith, let fear seep in, and questioned myself and my abilities for the first time on the hike. I went back to my tent and reached for the book I brought along, 100 Bible verses everyone should know by heart. I did not know them by heart. I also hadn't had any time previously to read much of the book. So I opened it up, and God directed me straight to the page with Psalms 56:3. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In that moment, I put my trust in God, and He blessed me with renewed strength and confidence. So much of that trip was a spiritual journey for me, a reminder of how I need God in every moment of every day of my life, and how He is always there for us. We just need to trust Him. When I reached the summit, I also reached for my GoPro, which was fully charged when I left base camp. But because of the sub-zero temperatures, it was now at 0% when I went to turn it on. What we cannot forget is that God is always at 100%, and He helped me be able to get the video I desired. Earlier I talked about always wanting to get better, and striving for a better relationship with God. I want to strive to be at 100% for God. I wasn't always all in, and it wasn't until I was that my life changed forever. It's not that life became easier, but it became better. In fact, as we know, life can be tough. But we also have so much to be thankful for, starting with God's gift to us. God so loved the world, He gave His one and only Son, so that those who believe in Him shall not perish, but have eternal life. This gift has provided me with peace, joy, and hope. It has made all the difference in this life, and I trust it will continue to make all the difference until this life is over, and I enter into my eternal home. May all of our stories be a work in progress, continuing to lead us closer to God and a life filled with gratitude. I just want to express again how thankful I am for answered prayers and for having had this opportunity to share today. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Have Faith, Let It Begin. We hope you enjoyed a work in progress provided to us by Angela. She will be back on the air with us on Monday, July 1st, 2019. She will sit down with us and answer some questions. And folks, I just want to point out to you that if you want to hear this message yet again with the whole family, don't worry. For the month of July, every single Sunday, we will be airing a work in progress. Hello everyone, I am breaking in at this time to share with you that the title, A Work in Progress, that was performed by Angela, which was aired every Sunday for the month of July, has concluded. We want to take this opportunity to thank Angela for participating and for joining us here on our show and on our platform. We welcome her back on this show in August to go over new topics, new inspirational stories, and motivational topics, of course, to set out to help change the world. I am going to stop the episodes as of today because next Sunday, July 28th, live from my church at 10 a.m., I will be preaching a sermon entitled, You've Got Mail. I hope that all of you can join us live as we will be broadcasting on our Facebook like page live from audio and video for the first time. That's right, I will be preaching for the first time on this platform live for audio and video. That feed will take place on our Facebook like page live exclusively for everyone out there that subscribes to our show. So at this time, I'd like to say thank you again to Angela. You're a blessing. You're an inspiration. You are a gift from God. And the fact that you were able to use your instruments, your tools, your talents, your gifts, I can guarantee you helped change lives. For Have Faith, Let It Begin, my name is Angel, and we'll see you back Monday, July 22nd, as we continue on with this series and these platforms and these shows and these topics, as we get ready to embark on a new journey, a new topic, a very controversial one, entitled Being Bullied. Have a great day, everyone, and may God bless you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Have Faith, Let It Begin. That's right, Ariel. We're done with another show. And it's always great to have this show with you, my love. You know, we're going to encourage each and every person to listen to our show every single weekday. That's right, you and I are going to help change the world. Do you think that you can do that for me? Huh? Yeah, you know you can. She does. We want to let you know, and yes, we encourage you to listen to our show each and every weekday, and it's going to be live at 7:30. Make sure you're subscribed to our show. Make sure you get ready, fasten those seatbelts, because Ariel and I and my family are going to bring you a new topic, a new story each and every day, right? Isn't that right, Ariel? Yeah. And she's smiling at me. Guys, enjoy your day. Don't forget, everyone, we'll be live on July 28th at 10 a.m. For the very first time ever, I will be preaching from my church, and we'll have an audio and video feed. You have to subscribe to our like page to see it. You have to be able to go into our website. It's www.havefaithletitbegin.com. And if you have any questions, email me, angel@havefaithletitbegin.com. Have a great day. And we're out in 4, 3, 2,